Thank you for watching. I'm John Erasmus. In this episode of Mysterialis, I will be reviewing Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's book, The Edge of the Unknown. An awesome book if you want to know the history behind the mindset and the perspective and the first-hand witnesses and the story of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle concerning his belief in spirits. He famously went to seances, communicated with the dead, and he had a great critic and a friend, Houdini. Harry Houdini was a critic of seances, but he was a good friend of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, enough for Conan Doyle to have a whole chapter dedicated to Houdini and remembering his legacy. After Houdini passed away, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote this book, or at least that chapter, and there are some cool insights on Harry Houdini as well. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle invented Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes was a genius. He could understand and figure out and see the clues you see repeated and copied in modern day TV shows like Matlock, Columbo, Monk, Psych, you name it, Murder, She Wrote, whatever the case. There are many fans of the great Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's character Sherlock Holmes, so they're paying homage to him. Sherlock Holmes could tell within 10 seconds whether a seance was real, whether the medium, the fortune teller, whatever you want to call the conductor of a seance, he could tell within seconds if it was rigged. I believe Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was easily 1/10 as ingenious and as smart as his character Sherlock Holmes, if not half as smart. He didn't solve mysteries like his character Sherlock Holmes, but he did go to hundreds of seances. And in this book, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle admits he had been to a few fake ones here and there. He didn't give a percentage because he's such a proponent of spiritualism, earlier known as spiritism, the belief that it's a spiritually uplifting thing to go to a seance, the table tappings and the table rappings of the past 100 years, and the invention of the Ouija board inventions to communicate with spirits. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle believed in these things because of first-hand encounters he had. He details some of these first-hand encounters in this book. For those of you already bored, I'm also going to be doing a review of this smoke bomb that I got. I'm a big fan of smoke fireworks, smoke-related fireworks, and I grabbed this at the Phantom fireworks stand. I'm going to be letting it off. No one's going to mind. I think it lasts for about 2 minutes. In the open, it's going to dissipate. It's totally harmless. It's not going to hurt anybody. There are a lot of bugs around here. It might get rid of some of the bugs in the area for a few seconds. But I'm going to be doing a review of this smoke bomb as well. I'm going to put this... It's a smoke grenade. You actually pull the ring. I've never seen these. I've never used one. So I'm going to be just putting it over here. Back to the book review. I read this a few months ago at this point. The Edge of the Unknown by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. 1930 edition. Chapter 1. The Riddle of Houdini. That chapter really captured me because I'm a huge fan of Houdini. Yet, I'm not a fan of Houdini saying that ghosts aren't real. Houdini famously made the bet and the claim that if he dies, he will try his best to communicate, to prove it's possible. As far as we know, to this day, Houdini has never communicated. I think even Sir Arthur Conan Doyle might have disagreed with that, but let's face it, when a famous person passes away and 100 people say they talked with Marilyn Monroe at a seance, and there are actually many people who've said they've talked to Arthur Conan Doyle at a seance, and I played a recording of one of those seances in a previous video. In England, and the seances are conducted fully in the dark, and video cameras are not allowed, and I'm sure recorders are not allowed, but the house does have a recorder, and they play it on their website. That's where I heard the clip. You can check that out for yourself. But Harry Houdini, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle makes a very strange claim that Houdini probably had psychic abilities, was a medium, was a natural medium, could psychically do things. He does stretch that just having intuition, a psychic's intuition, which I believe many people do have and are born with. Even if they're skeptics and they don't believe in that stuff, you can still have certain gifts and abilities. And one such ability, Houdini relayed to Arthur. He said, "There's one trick I do which I don't know how it works. There's a box trick I do. I don't know how it works." Now, we do know many of Houdini's tricks and how they worked. He had underwater in a jug, underwater in a box, a sealed box. He would climb and break free. And Houdini was backstage reading the newspaper. Famously, while people thought he was underwater with handcuffs in a jug or a really confined, watertight case, Houdini was reading the newspaper because he slipped out of there within seconds of them putting the cover over. So we do know that he did know how the box trick worked, unless Houdini's talking about a different box trick. The problem is, Arthur Conan Doyle never elaborates exactly what box trick he's talking about. But there's another secret, and Arthur admits Houdini would throw people off with false information all the time to hide his secrets. There's nothing more valuable to a magician than the secret of their trick, which is their livelihood. But there's another trick, or not really trick, there's just a certain stunt that Houdini would do. He would jump off with a straight jacket, and then, he would undo it, but there's a specific jumping trick. Houdini said he heard a voice, and he said he had to jump when he heard that voice. And if he jumped before hearing that voice, it wouldn't be good. He said one time he went without the voice, and he said he almost broke his neck. He said ever since then he strictly only went when he heard the voice, "Go, right now." It's very interesting. So if that's a true story, which I believe it is, Houdini isn't revealing any secrets. He was relaying and trying to relate to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who believes in secret messengers from spirits. And I believe that's the case as well. I think everyone has a familiar spirit on the negative spectrum, but there's an opposition in the universe. So I believe everyone has a positive spirit as well. Just as a... wow. Let's see if we can get this. That looks like a stealth bomber. I'm not joking. That looks, to me, like a stealth bomber. Very cool. Wow, the reason I had to film that is capturing a stealth bomber's lights from underneath at night is a very rare scenario. You go on Google Images, stealth bomber, the underneath lights, try to compare them with UFOs, and that's actually footage I'm going to be using now forever, because I rarely capture such footage. A stealth bomber just flew overhead. There is an Air Force base not too far from here, and it was the 4th of July, and they probably very recently, with the Blue Angels, the stealth bombers come out and they do a really cool airplane show. They do frequently fly over my house. I mean, it's about once every couple months, sometimes once every 6 months. So it's rare enough where that's the best footage I've ever received. Whew. I'm happy to have gotten that. All right. So, the edge of the unknown. For those who say ghosts don't exist, spirits don't exist, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the guy who invented Sherlock Holmes, was an idiot, and he couldn't tell the difference between a scammer and a true, actual psychic medium, I'd say you're dead wrong. Read the book. There are other books that confirm this. I randomly picked up one book, searching, just randomly searching, zero history of knowing what it is, whether it's pro or con. You'll find, you'll buy a book on a subject, whether it's poltergeists. I've studied that pretty extensively because it happened to me. And you'll find you think it's a pro and they're going to tell you actual stories, and it turns out to be a con and nothing but negative stories on the subject, and they don't even throw in a single eyewitness who actually experienced it. It's just an analytical, like, mathematically, it sounds like whatever. But this book, I was surprised. It is called Modern Spiritism by a guy named Rupert. So Rupert, he went to a number of seances for the singular purpose of exposing whether they're true or false. It was a debate during this time frame. Let's open up this book, 1920. Wow, 1920. The debate was still going on. The debate went on in the 1800s, 1920s, 1930s and 40s, and after that it kind of died off. But the Ouija board became very popular, and there's a debate with that to this day. But Rupert said, and I haven't read this whole book, so I'm not going to do a book review on this. I'm just going to tell you about like the one chapter I read. He said he went to many, many seances, just like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And he was genuinely curious for science. He wanted to know the truth. He said he was skeptical and knew about the people debunking it, and he wanted to know firsthand for himself. He went to enough to know that some of them are real, that the phenomenon is real. Spirits do manifest. It's not gimmicks and tricks. I think he knew what he was talking about. I haven't even read the whole book. I just read one chapter. But that's a second witness, a second person who did their research and agreed with Arthur Conan Doyle that if you go to enough seances, you're eventually going to go to a real one with a real spirit. There are going to be many theories, but I'll give you my theory right off the bat. Whenever something is real, like a seance, whenever something is real, like contact with a Ouija board, whenever something is supernaturally real, like seeing a UFO, a really paranormal one, like out of this world, definitely not terrestrial, seeing an angel, seeing a ghost, whenever true supernatural events happen in the history of mankind, there's always an opposite. There's always a counter. There's always some bum out there that uses it, makes up fake stories of the same subject, claimed they're an ambassador of this or that, an extraterrestrial, that they're an expert on Bigfoot, and they've been tracking Bigfoot. Whatever the case, there are many, many, many examples. There's always going to be a faker throwing in fake stuff. One example, UFOs. I believe unidentified flying objects are real. Some of them are stealth bombers mistaken for UFOs. But I believe actual paranormal UFOs exist. I've seen a few way back in the day. Haven't seen them ever again. I legitimately saw some strange stuff. But there's always going to be someone coming forward trying to make money off of that. Muddying the water to the point where some fields are saturated with lies, saturated with hoaxers. The example I was going to give is UFOs. You type in UFOs on YouTube, and this is off on a tangent. I'm going to stop very soon and go back to the book review. 99.9% of the UFOs you see on YouTube are going to be fake. And from first-hand experience, having witnessed poltergeist activity, even while the poltergeist was throwing stuff at me, knocking stuff over in my room, I was typing in poltergeist at Google. I was typing in poltergeist on YouTube. And I would say easily 99% of it's fake. 99%. That is an abnormally, extremely high number of fake evidence. Fake encounters. Fake witnesses. It's almost like people are possessed to fake stuff. What's their motivation? Some people crazily want to fake stuff 24/7, like a fake crank machine just cranking out fake evidence. You're never going to see that with me. You're never going to see anything fake on this channel. But I don't lie. I focus on the truth. I stand for truth, and I proudly stand for truth. And I'm not ashamed of the truth that I speak, is the point and the gist I was getting to. Back to the book review. One thing that stuck out, besides the voice that Harry Houdini heard, which he followed, was Arthur Conan Doyle hung out with Houdini enough to see him off stage, just casually walking around, and could break a lock, seemingly with no instruments. Like a master locksmith, a master at breaking anything open with a key or a lock, a door, whatever the case. There's one encounter where Arthur Conan Doyle was with his wife, and he was walking down a hallway after an event, and he's with Houdini, and they're just walking down the hallway, and they're trying to get around whatever the case. It might have been a celebrity event, I don't know what it was. There's a lock on the door. Mrs. Conan Doyle's like, oh man, we'll never get through that. And he said, Houdini, seemingly with no instruments, nothing up his sleeve, literally, a hefty lock. Now, for all we know, this was staged, but from Arthur Conan Doyle's words in this book, he illustrates it was not staged, not planned, on the spot, and not the first time he'd seen Houdini do this. He plucked the lock off the door as easily as plucking an apple from a tree. Literally, just bam. An almost impossible to break lock from the perspective of the Conan Doyles, and from Houdini's perspective, oh, there you go. He just pulled it off. And that really blew away Arthur. He relates a few other encounters similar to that, showing him that, wow, does this guy have supernatural abilities? But he could tell he had an uncanny intuition, that he followed more than just his exact procedures for breaking locks and getting out of straitjackets and performing amazing feats, but that he had some type of psychic intuition, and he calls him a great medium in this book. Perhaps a great medium that didn't even know he was a great medium. I think there's even an example of Houdini going to a seance with the attempt to debunk it, and Houdini walks away believing it, and then a few days later disbelieving it. And that is an example I see, actually, here and there, from time to time. People seeing something amazing, believing in it, and then literally 2 weeks down the road, they're like, it's something I ate. They have like the Ebenezer Scrooge syndrome. I mean, you see that. People like debunk it with the dumbest excuses. The Law of the Ghost, alleged posthumous writings of known authors, some curious personal experiences. I admit, there are things in this book which I greatly disagree with. Arthur Conan Doyle claims that a famous author was writing via automatic or trance writing through a medium. The dead person who's a famous author is writing through a medium. And Arthur Conan Doyle said, wow, that's exactly like their writing. It's clearly proof of the other side. And no matter how exact it is, I disagree. You can see stuff from David Bowie to Kurt Cobain, people claiming they have had contacted these famous people, saying, oh, this is exactly what they would have said. Of course, it's exactly what they would have said. I remember there's a Michael Jackson one that I found pretty offensive, because clearly they were talking to one of the Jacksons, getting their hopes up that they're having communication. So most definitely, fake communication happens. People take advantage of people in a weak situation where their loved one passed on, and yeah, they cash in on it. That I'm very much against. But the small percentage of true cases, I've never even been to a seance. Nope, I have not. I have to admit, I've never been to a seance in my life. But I've had enough ghost and spirit and demon encounters to know for a fact spirits exist. So I don't need a seance encounter. I wouldn't be so gung-ho for going to a seance, but if I knew someone personally and they invited me, I'd be curious just so I could have some data to talk about, but I wouldn't be sucked into any type of group such as Roger Morneau mentions. He said the group he went to in Canada, I believe it was Montreal, the front for the church, if you will, that worshipped spirits, the front was a seance meeting where they ask, what dead loved one do you want to talk to? And similarly to that story, Roger Morneau said, and it relates to something, a key moment in this book, in my opinion. Roger Morneau said, At one of the seance meetings he went to, before he was recruited to go to this church, he said he saw a full body manifestation of a woman, like walk through the wall. And it was the passed away sister of one of the ladies who said she wanted to talk to her sister. And that freaked a lot of people out in the room. The lady who's related and the sister, she passed out. She was so freaked out, she passed out. And Roger Morneau, when he saw that, he's like, wow, that's freaky. I guess it disappeared. And then when they came to Roger asking what dead loved one he wants to talk to, and he probably said earlier his mother, he's like, oh, I don't want to see her. I don't want to see just the voice. I don't want to see. He was so freaked out, he just wanted to hear the voice and not see the manifestation, which I can understand. Seeing a ghost, I definitely don't want to see a ghost. If I have seen anything here and there, with my eyes closed or out of the corner of my eye, it's nothing compared to the people that claim they have actually seen and full body manifestations. I wouldn't want to see that. It'd be freaky. It's the type of thing that would haunt you for a long time visually. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle said he was talking to a skeptic. He was probably Harry Houdini. Yeah, I believe it was. It was. Houdini was pressing him like, this stuff's fake, man. It's all gimmicks. I can reproduce it. And Harry Houdini did reproduce famously once at the Winchester Mystery House for Sarah Winchester. He was in the Witch's Cap room, which I walked in. Has a nice echo. Has like scaffolding on the walls, so you can't hide any gimmicks. That's probably why Houdini picked that room. He conducted a seance. He had bells and whistles and gimmicks and tricks, which Harry invented using his feet, using every different hidden mode of trickery that an illusionist will come up with. And he said, it's reproducible, man. Just because a magician, a professional magician, can reproduce some of the gimmicks and some of the tricks, or some of the performances by the spirits, if you will, the bell ringing in the corner, the levitation of certain objects in pitch blackness, which you don't know if it actually levitated or not. Such things could be tricked, I admit. But Arthur Conan Doyle came back to Houdini immediately and said, hey, I've been to hundreds of seances. I've been to a seance where I asked the medium if they could show me my mother, a young version of my mother, at a young age. No picture exists. Not a single picture of my young mother that I remember as a kid exists on Earth. Clearly, the medium had never seen Arthur Conan Doyle's late mother, and clearly he wouldn't have seen a young version of his young mother. An impossible scenario, right? I can see a psychic or a medium today like drawing a picture. This isn't what happened at the seance with Arthur Conan Doyle. According to Arthur Conan Doyle, a full body manifestation of a spirit appeared. Similar to the Roger Morneau story. A full body apparition. Hey! Get out of my face. Sorry. It's a little freaky talking about ghosts, and it's starting to move some wind around, and wind can easily be mistaken for spirits, but I guarantee there's spirits around when I talk about spirits, especially when I talk about spirits. So I'm going to continue the story. A full body apparition, a full body manifestation of the young mother, exactly as Arthur Conan Doyle remembered her as a kid. No photograph had ever been taken. No one could possibly know. That's when Arthur Conan Doyle knew for a fact spirits exist. Now, I do personally believe Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, hook, line, and sinker, fell for the belief. Clearly, he condones the belief throughout the entire book to an extreme degree, famously believes in it. But he didn't consider the possibility, or did he? Yes, he did. There are a few sentences in this book which show Sir Arthur Conan Doyle having some thoughts of, is this an evil spirit using trickery? And I don't think so, because look at the great benefit. Wow, that's about the exact gist that he uses. That's the same mentality, the same justification that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle uses when he says, of course it's not evil. Good came from it, and if good came from it, it has to have come from a good spirit. These negative spirits can easily twist and manipulate, from my first-hand experience, from my opinion. Take it or leave it, but if they're more intelligent than us mortals, they can most definitely pretend to be good, and pretend to do good, and pretend to do an amazing miracle, when it's really just a twisted, manipulated version. The deception, perhaps worshipping and going to seances and communicating with these entities we're not supposed to. I personally think no good can come to communicating with spirits, willingly going out of your way to do so. Except if you're on a ghost show or you're a ghost investigator, trying to show to the world that, hey, there are many skeptics that say this doesn't exist. I've witnessed this firsthand. I don't want people calling me crazy. I want to get something on camera. I want to get something on a recording. I want to show the proof to my family and friends, the world, that here's some evidence. So I have to admit, the people who famously get on the news, oh, amazing footage of an amazing ghost, they're more believed than the people that don't have anything. Because of my light right here, I'm attracting a lot of bugs. Because bugs are hardwired to believe that a light is the moon, and they're guided by the light of the moon. And I do not see a moon in the night sky right now, so a huge bug just flew into that. Remember, stay tuned. I'm going to have, at the end of the video, a review of this smoke grenade from Phantom Fireworks. The Rift in the Veil, a new light on old crimes, singular records of a circle. I'm not going to relate to every chapter and everything that happened in this book, but I do highly recommend it. There are pieces of information. I'm very thankful and glad. This is the first actual spiritualism, seance related book I've ever read where it focuses on that subject. Because Arthur Conan Doyle being in the forefront of that discussion, I wanted to see his perspective on it. Until I read this book, all I had ever been bombarded with is information on Houdini can fake it, Houdini can reproduce it, Houdini has gimmicks to reproduce, and he debunked it, and most people believed him. Doctors wrote dissertations on, yeah, it's a fake phenomenon, forget about it, it's all fake. And by the 1960s, people forgot about seances. It was just a fad from their perspective. It was just something people did because they didn't have TVs. There's a chapter that talks about summer and how in the heat of summer, you can see spirits. According to Arthur Conan Doyle, he said he collected a number of stories from people who witnessed ghosts and other type spirits. He mentions leprechauns, like sprites and fairies, like gnome type creatures, like dwarf type spirits that apparently are all around us, but we can't see them. And he relates a couple of very interesting stories, which I'd never heard before. One of them, a guy was on a wagon traveling, and he turns and he sees like some gnome type creatures jumping on the wagon and following. And he sees them for a couple minutes, then he turns around and then bam, they're gone. They disappeared. Perhaps they were still there. They just phased in and out of their dimension. And there are a couple other stories like that, where people witnessed gnome-type creatures in the hot summer day, in the grass, whatever the case. Very interesting. I'm going to be investigating ghosts on my ghost investigation show, Mysterialis. I'm going to be going in the dead of July to a few places. Hopefully, I'll capture some evidence of spirits, of ghosts. Some of them might be famously haunted, some of them might not be. And it doesn't really matter. It's really a case-by-case, day-by-day. You either capture it or you don't. You can go to the most haunted place in the world, capture nothing. You can go to a place that no one's ever heard of and capture something. So it could be the most boring place in the world and you can get something. Most famously haunted and nothing. Spirits are very discerning and picky, and they almost pick and choose who they show themselves to. It's very interesting. I highly recommend this book. It's very cool. Check it out. I'm going to be reviewing this Modern Spiritism book by Rupert that I randomly picked up and also happens to agree with Arthur Conan Doyle as another piece of evidence that at least early spiritualism, early seances, back when the trend was fairly new, it was a real phenomenon. It kind of morphed into a fake phenomenon. Or perhaps the fake ones overcame the real ones. I think there are real seances to this day, and there are many fake ones to this day. If you see it on TV, chances are it's fake. But there are a lot of private, exclusive ones, and the one in England that I heard about doesn't charge money to prove that they're real. They don't charge money. Perhaps it's a rule. But I'm going to be reviewing this book in the future. Now it's time. If you've been patient enough and waited, it is now time to review this smoke grenade. I'm going to wear this light on my head just so I can perhaps show the smoke a little bit better than otherwise. But here we go. If this becomes a problem, I'll get out of the way. But this is a phantom smoke grenade, totally harmless, totally safe. Let's see what happens. And here we go. I'm going to pull on this. Wow, it's pretty cool. You can hold it. There's no heat. It's lasting a good amount of time. If it was in an open door, if it was in a house, it would fill up the room with smoke. Very cool. I could perhaps use these in the future for a special effect. So yeah, I recommend it. It's a very fun device. I recommend it. It's a very fun little smoke grenade. It's very cool. It lasts way longer. You saw how short the small ones last. Like 20 seconds with barely anything. This lasted a good amount of time, but on top of lasting a good amount of time, it was a good amount of smoke. Very cool. Look for these next 4th of July. Hope you enjoyed my review of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Edge of the Unknown and this phantom smoke grenade. Until next time, I thank you for watching. Yes, the magic wand is still under the tree, and it still has its big holes. Wow, yeah, I'm seeing some new holes here. These are some new holes. These are bigger holes than they used to be. So whatever is living in here is still living in here. Anyway, be seeing you.